Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today I want to talk about a team that I started building way back when the game was first released, that I kind of put to the side while I was doing the elves, but I have seen a bit of potential out of them while I've been trying to do the raids. They've been one of my secondary teams, and that's the team of BOLG and the Misty Mountains crew. Now, this team is a little bit more of a late game type team that you're going to put together simply because a lot of these characters aren't farmable early on in the game, but the potential for damage in them has been really good. And I wanted to put this together just for those of you guys out there that do have BOLG unlocked and might be looking for a team that you can build around him and get some better use out of him. Now, because he is one of the characters in the challenge store, most players have either picked BOLG or Halbarad to start farming, so having to make that choice means that not everyone's going to have him. But if you have picked BOLG, you have unlocked him, or if you're in the process of unlocking him, this video could be for you, and I will touch on a couple of replacements that you might be able to throw in there just in case you don't have some of these characters. So first of all, we are going to start with BOLG. We're going to have a look at his leadership ability, and the first thing that you can see here is the synergy that he has with Orc, Troll and Misty Mountains characters. So this does leave him open to a lot of theory crafting, so make sure if there's something that you think might work with him, pop that in the comments below so I can have a look at that a little bit later. But as far as putting your resources into this ability, what you want to be aiming for is getting this ability up to level 5. Maxing it out at level 6 is probably not going to matter too much. That 5% resistance, even though it is good as far as stopping some of those banes from infecting the team, 5% isn't a great deal considering the cost of actually upgrading to that level 6. But the reason why you want to have this at level 5 is that will give you a total of 50% chance to gain advantage for one turn, which guarantees a critical hit. Now, it won't matter as much in Chapter 1 of the raid, but in Chapter 2, where you need those critical hits to knock that momentum off the troll, that is going to be very, very important. Now, this team here not only has great damage potential, but those critical hits can proc quite a lot. So the more chances that you have of making that happen, the better they're going to be against the troll. Now, for his other abilities, BOLG is so good at dealing out damage. He is actually the second highest damage dealer in the game, only behind the troll brute. So every percentage of damage is going to work really well in BOLG's favor. So on his basic, you're only going to be adding damage the more that you go up. Maxing this out, you're going to have 210% damage. I would probably start out at least level 4 on this one. You can come back and finish that off. That other 50% damage is going to equal quite a bit in the end, but for the sake of saving some of those ability materials for other things, level 4 is probably a good place to have it at the start and then come back a bit later. On his first special ability here, not only can this one have a couple of effects like disable and also that heal block while he's below 50% health, this can dish out a total of 270% damage, which is massive. And you can do this every 3 rounds because it does have a very short cooldown. So the higher that you can get this, the better. Now, I've got this currently at level 5. That's where I'm currently sitting. I'm comfortable keeping it there for the time being. There are a couple of other abilities for this team I'd rather spend the ability mats on before I come back and do that last upgrade. But it is definitely one that I will come back and do because that extra 40% damage is quite big when you're talking about BOLG. For that second special ability, this is another big damage move. Whether he's by himself or whether he has Tordok in the team, preferably having Tordok is going to make this move even more lethal. It can pack a massive punch, but more importantly, it inflicts disrupted. And you only need a level 4 upgrade for that to be extended to 2 turns while he is down below 50% health. So in terms of the raid, when you are against the troll, you don't want to be using this move while the troll is down. You want to be using this as soon as possible. You have 1 round before you can use this, then it's a 4-round cooldown. So you might be able to get this in a couple of times before you topple the troll, but it's going to stop that momentum from building up, which is very important when it comes to the troll. In terms of where you're spending your ability materials, you want this bare minimum level 4 to have that extra disrupted turn. That's very important. But getting this one up to level 6 is something that you want to consider once you do have him high enough in level, simply because it does a lot of damage. So make sure that even if you don't do this to start with, you come back and finish this off to level 6. It's very important. If we go to his passive ability here, now this is where that mechanic of him being under 50% health really kicks in. So while he is above 50% health, he's going to gain those provoke stacks, which just directs the damage at him to get him down below that 50%. When he gets below it, he'll also gain 15% damage. You can get that up to 20% at level 5. I don't really think you need to get that extra stack of provoke at level 6, given the cost of the ability materials and the fact you also need him at level 60, so you're spending a lot on him just to get that extra provoke stack. From what I've seen, you can get him below 50% pretty quickly. Having that extra provoke stack could cause him to be defeated from the battle a lot earlier, and you really don't want that. So I would probably avoid level 6, but everything else is definitely something to consider. I know you might be thinking that 5% is not much, but when you're talking about BOLG and his high base statistics, 5% for him is much higher than anybody else. So 5% is definitely something that's going to be beneficial for his kit. Now the next one that I want to talk about is Tordok. His primary role is to protect BOLG. So yes, he can do some decent damage. On his basic attack, as you can see here, you're only looking at damage. So I have stopped at level 4 for the time being. If you do want to add some more damage, because you've got another 60% that you can get out of him, so you can always come back and add those other ones later. But there are much more important abilities that you want to put those ability materials into, so save them for something else. His first special ability here is where he's going to gain that taunt. So you're going to be able to protect BOLG from some of that damage so he can deal out the damage for himself. This also heals him a little bit as well. So level 4 is where I've got it. That extra 4%, once you do max him out as far as his other statistics, so his level, his gear, his star level, and he has a much higher pool of health to draw from, you can always come back and add those extra bits of health. But 2% is not a great deal, so it's not something that you really need to max out. Level 4 is where you should get him to. It makes him a much better defender, and as you can see at level 3, it reduces the stamina cost to 3, so you can be taunting and healing a lot more frequently than some of the other taunters in the game. So this is a very important character to have, just as far as keeping the team alive is concerned. For his second special ability here, another one that can pack quite a bit of damage in. Enfeeble isn't a terrible stat to have because it does reduce their critical chance by 30%, and at level 4 you increase that to 2 rounds. Any way that you can try and reduce the damage on this team overall is going to help out, so that Enfeeble can be quite an important little debuff to have. Now moving on to his passive ability, and this is where the protection for BOLG really comes in. Once a Shadow Leader drops below 50% health, as we spoke about with BOLG, that's where his other abilities kick in. Tordok will gain 2 stacks of Provoke once this ability is maxed out. You're also giving him more max health the more that you build this one up. So this is definitely something that I would take all the way up to level 6. Yes, it's a very expensive one to have to upgrade, but also very important as far as survivability for the team is concerned. The next key member of the team that I want to talk about is Nuraz. Now, the reason why he is so important to this team is the fact that he can summon a troll into the battle. Now, having that troll come in means you're going to bring in a big damage dealer. What this does actually mean is that the summon troll goes off a lot of the stats that Nuraz has. So if you get Nuraz up to level 60, the troll will be level 60. You get him to gear 8, the troll will be gear 8, etc, etc. So let's go through the abilities and have a look at how we're going to build him. For his basic ability, once you get this to level 3, you don't really need to put anything else into it. Yes, you're going to get some bonus damage, and they look like decent percentages, as well as the bonus damage for when they have weaken. But don't forget that his base damage is quite low, so you're not going to see a lot of benefit, and the amount of purple ability mats that you need to put into this guy just to upgrade the basic ability, you're not going to see any real advantage. So I would leave that at level 3. The weaken is an okay ability to have, but it's not going to be hugely important in the raid. So let's just leave that at level 3 and spend our ability mats somewhere else. This is definitely an area where you can save some of those ability mats. But if we move on to his first special ability, this is somewhere where you might be able to use some of those ability mats as a trade-off. Getting this one up to level 4 is going to be great because it reduces the stamina down to 3. You can use it a little bit more often. Not only can it remove some banes from your allies, but once you max this out, it's going to grant defensive to all squad members, regardless of whether they are orcs, Misty Mountains, Shadow, Light. It doesn't matter who's in the team, you'll grant defensive to everybody. And when you've got defensive, that means you automatically block the next attack that comes in. So when you're talking about some of those big AoE moves, or even if you just get targeted with a big hit from a troll or some of the other orcs in chapter 1, it just means that you're going to reduce that damage by a great deal. So very important. You might not have to do this one at the very start. I'd get it at least to level 4, but then there's other advantages moving banes from 2 allies as well as defensive to all squad members is something I'd be coming back and definitely finishing off a little bit later on. But his second special ability, this is the one where he summons the troll in. Now there is a little bit of a delay. You've got to wait a couple of turns before you can use this one. But the reason why you want to max this ability out is not only for when you summon him in, you give the troll some extra turn meter so he can have his turn a little bit sooner. You also give him a stack of provoke when you do summon him in, so it's another taunt that they've got to get through. You can protect BOLG a lot better. But once you do get this to level 6, if we have a quick look at the troll Stonebreaker here, you'll see that all of his abilities are currently level 3. So every upgrade that you make for that ability for Nuraz is going to increase the abilities for the troll. This is just going to increase the damage output from this troll. Now, as you can also see from this, he is currently level 50, the same as I have Nuraz. He is also gear level 7, the same as Nuraz as well. So the more you increase everything for Nuraz, the stronger this troll is going to be when you summon him in. So make sure that second special for Nuraz is maxed out to level 6 as a priority for this character. As far as his passive ability goes, getting this one up to level 6 as well is really going to help the team out, because what it does is it forces the troll to taunt. So if the Stonebreaker is in the team, he will prioritize that. If you do have another troll in the team, it really helps the team out simply because you've got 2 rounds where you can get another troll to taunt before you can even summon this one in. And then you've also got 2 big damaging trolls in the team. So make sure that you do max this one out. The other good thing about Nuraz, he is farmable far earlier than any of these other characters. So you can get him up to that 7 stars if you do start farming him a lot earlier. Now for the last two positions, there are two things that we specifically need to think about. One is a troll and the other one is a healer. For this particular example, I do have Gruhur the Brute as the troll that I've been using. If you do have Gaza that you've put a lot of resources into, you can very easily sub him into this team. He will work just as well, not an issue. The only thing is that with Gaza, you may have him already set up in another team, so you may want to keep him there so you get those extra points for the other team that you're using him in. If you don't really have a spot for him, by all means put him in this team. You can't go wrong. The downside to Brute is that he is only available in the store, which means you have to save up your crystal rewards to start farming him. I did get him up to 4 stars. After that, it does get quite expensive to keep farming him, so it's completely up to you if you want to spend your crystals in that way. I'm hoping that at some stage he will be put in one of the other nodes so I can keep farming him further. For the time being, he's going to stay at 4 stars. Obviously 7 stars would be ideal. So let's have a look at his abilities. Now this guy is actually the highest damage dealer in the game once you do have all of his stats maxed out, but he does have a few other really cool things. On his basic, once you do max that one out, he'll always dispel a boon off your opponent, so that's really good against the troll. You can get rid of some of that momentum. In chapter 1, it can actually save you from some of those taunting orcs, so you can get back to the bomber. Obviously he is a little bit slower, so the timing might not always be right, but rather than having 50% chance to dispel the boon at level 2, to always be able to dispel that boon is going to be a great advantage to the team. So I would definitely encourage you to take this all the way to level 6. For his first special ability, this is a massive AoE, and even though at maximum it looks like 200% is not really the stat that looks the best compared to some of the other moves in the game. However, 200% on the highest base damage stat in the game is going to be far more beneficial than some of those other ones that might be 300 plus. You're going to see more damage out of this, and the fact that it's an AoE and inflicts expose for 2 turns at maximum is going to be a great way to invest in this character. So definitely take this all the way up to level 6 if you can. For his second special ability here, this is the one where I don't really see the benefit. Yes, Daze isn't a bad stat to have because it does reduce their focus by 50%, but Gruhur doesn't have very good focus himself, so he very rarely applies this debuff anyway. If you're talking about the raid, the best thing to use this on would be the troll to save some of those debuffs on yourself. You don't need it more than one enemy in that case, but this isn't really the ability that I'd be looking to take any higher than level 3 for any reason whatsoever, no matter which game mode you're talking about. Unless Daze has a much better effect on something else down the track, leave this one at level 3 if you even decide to invest in it at all. Now for his passive ability, this is one that you can really get a lot out of. When you max this one out, anyone that attacks the Brute will have poison inflicted on him. So if you have him taunting, he's going to have all the attacks directed towards him, which is where Nuraz comes in, making him taunt. He deals out that poison damage. A lot of really good passive damage can be done just from having this one maxed out. The best thing about Gruhur, he is very easy as far as strategy is concerned. You want to use his AoE, inflict the expose, use his basic, you can knock out those boons from your opposition, then you'll be able to use his AoE again because it's only a 2-turn cooldown. So every second turn, you can throw that AoE out there, do a lot of damage, throw out the exposes, help the other guys do more damage to those opponents, and you can get a lot of points just by having this guy in the team. So definitely someone, if you do want to have an investment for your crystals as far as a character is concerned, he is someone that I would probably consider at least getting him up to that 4-star mark. Now, last but not least, we need a healer for this team. I have been using Halbarad. He is a little bit more tanky, so he can last a bit longer, has the extra taunt, but his healing, he is a little bit slow, so it doesn't really keep this team alive for long enough. The one that I have chosen to start working on and eventually sub into this team is Chef Kraska. Number one, he is also Misty Mountains, so he will work a lot better under the leadership of BOLG. But the other thing is, he can heal way faster than anybody else. So as far as the Shadow team is concerned, he is the best option currently in the game for that healer. You can put any healer in this position, whether it's the Haradrim Sage, it could even be Neyramiri if you've been farming her for the Elrond event but haven't really found a use for her in the raid. She could slot in here as a really good healer, that's perfectly fine. But for synergy's sake, we're going to talk about Chef Kraska. Now, he is a late farm in the game, so again, not one you're going to be able to access too easily. But once you do get him unlocked, he could be quite beneficial for this team. For his basic ability, he does have this cheeky little dynamic where he can steal a boon from the opposition and give it to one of his own team members. I'm not sure if you can steal any momentum from the troll. If you can, that would be really great. Otherwise, you might be able to steal a counter attack, which is even better. You probably don't need to worry too much about putting a lot into this, because even at level 2, he's going to have 75% chance to steal that boon. He's not going to be a huge damage dealer, so the more damage you put in there, it's not going to change things too much. If you do want to take it up to level 6 to always steal a boon, that's completely up to you. But level 2 or 3 is probably enough to put into this one. You can always come back and throw a bit more into this if you really want to a little bit later. But for his first special ability, this is the one that you really want to get up to maximum, because he doesn't have a huge health pool to draw on. But once you do build up the stats on this guy, he is a very, very good healer. He can do quite a good job in that role. The only problem is you need to keep him alive, because when he dies and the other goblin substitutes in, he doesn't have this heal anymore. He only throws out regeneration stacks, which are obviously nowhere near as good. So getting this guy up to gear 8, level 60, max him out at 7 stars, that's going to be the challenge with this character. You really want him as strong as you possibly can to get the most out of the healing and to keep the first goblin alive as long as possible. For his first passive ability, this is something that you do want to max out. Yes, there's healing, there's turn meter for the goblin that's summoned in, that's all great, but by maxing this out, what that's going to mean is that the goblin that is summoned in will have level 6 abilities as well, so at least you're going to get a bit more out of that assistant cook when they do come in. Now, maybe one day we will get a better shadow character that comes in that can heal, that we can sub into this team as well if they don't really have another place to fit. But for now, I think the Goblin Chef could be quite good in this team. We will touch on this last passive here, only so you guys know. This is only important if you do have him in an all-goblin team. Otherwise, if you're going to use him for the BOLG team, save your ability materials, don't put anything into this. If you do want to build up your goblins later on, this is definitely something that you're going to come back and put more into, because it will keep those goblins alive a lot longer. But let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of this team? Are there any other characters that you would probably sub in and out of this team just to try and extend the life of the team or get more damage out of them? I'd really love to hear your feedback on this one, but that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget, like and sub, you know the deal. We got plenty more Heroes of Middle-earth coming your way. Don't miss out, and we'll catch you in the next one.